So today I'm with Jay James, who is a really successful artist and manager. So I'm super excited to talk to him right now. And we are going to get into his career. And also, we are going to discuss the role of an artist manager from everything, including the music through to the brand and all that good stuff in between. So, hey, Jay.
How you doing, Daniel? You all right, mate?
I am good, thank you. How are you?
I am not too bad. I'm not too bad. I'm down in southwest of England at the moment, and it's a delightful sunny day. So I'm
Perfect.
happy.
I can tell you it's a lovely day here in London, but it's also pretty hot. Anyway, let's get into it. And so I
Yeah.
guess the first thing I'd love to know, and anybody listening would love to know, is can you just give us a kind of walkthrough of your career, I guess, and everything you've done along the way?
Yeah, I suppose I'll try and be as quick as I can because it's been quite a lengthy career.
Sure.
But I'd say, yeah, I've been involved in the industry now for around 17 years. Um, Firstly, as a solo artist and a songwriter. And for the last 4 years, I've been involved as a member of the Overtones, we've been blessed to have many different experiences, a multi-platinum selling group. We've had five top 10 albums. We had a number one album in 2021, which was fantastic, an independent album, which was superb. Been blessed with 11 sellout national tours and continue to travel the world and do what we love to do. So, that's that in a nutshell. Prior to that, I was blessed with many different experiences as a solo artist and a songwriter. That I worked with many different major record labels, major publishing companies, and yeah, I mean it's been unbelievable. I think I've got a unique blessing of working with probably every aspect of the industry you could think of, from major record labels, again publishing deals, to reality TV, songwriting, production. So I've kind of done a bit of everything, to be honest with you. And I think that's that definitely set me up, in regards to management, because I think for nearly a decade I kind of managed myself, and I always had the instinct to kind of know what I needed to do from a business aspect, and I think that became quite clear. And then equally, you know. I was in the military for near on 10 years, and the role that I played within the military was a physical training instructor, which was kind of, training people, bringing in that element of discipline and inspiration to people within the military. So I've always loved working with people and working as a member of the team. So for me to help mentor and help people in their own music careers was always a bit of a goal for me. It was just where I found that transition, and I think certainly in the last 3 years that has become a more of a serious transition. And I say transition because I'm still an active artist with the Overtones, and love to do that. So I run and founded a music management company and a creative agency called the Fly United, or TFU. And again, the main goal there is to try and elevate as many incredible individuals who want to make it in the music industry and entertainment business. So I'm having an absolute ball. So that's me in a nutshell.
Yeah, fantastic. There's so much there, and I know we've talked about this before, and I was in awe then, and I'm in awe now. I think it's really awesome. And one question I always love to ask artists, and so I'm going to ask you too, is what
Yeah.
first got you into music? Like, was it some record you heard, or what was it?
Do you know what? I'd say music has played a part in my life for a long, long time. But as I mentioned now, I was in the Navy for 10 years, and I probably got into music seriously by accident. I was actually on an all-day session with a load of mates, and we were talking about New Year's resolutions, and we were having a bit of a joke and a bit of a skylark. And I saw a music shop across the road at that moment in time. And I made a bit of a joke about going in and buying a guitar and becoming a rock star. That's what my New Year's resolution was going to be. And I was fairly sort of young at the time. And the lads were like, yeah, of course you will, of course you will. And I was like, I'll go and do it now. And anyway, I walked across this road half drunk and ended up buying a guitar, which I christened Lamar, took it round all these different pubs with me for the rest of the night. And loads of girls thought, I was like, yeah, I've got a gig tonight. Yeah, I'm just, and then the next morning I woke up with this guitar in my bed, and I was like, what on earth is this? What have I done? But actually, 3 months later, um, I got injured playing rugby for the Navy, and I got sent on sick leave. And in that moment in my career, I was doing pretty well for myself. I'd sort of been, sort of gone from certain post, and I was really, finding the rhythm in my job as a physical trainer. And it kind of felt like things got taken away from me. And in order to try and keep an element of focus, I sort of turned to music and actually learning the guitar. Firstly, just to try and learn the guitar. And actually, as a byproduct to my bad guitar playing, I ended up sort of singing the melody to kind of carry my guitar playing. And then obviously discovered I could sing a little bit. And then actually, in playing the guitar and learning the guitar, you kind of, you start to listen to some of the greatest songs that have ever written that are kind of 3, 4, 5 chord sequences, which equally work really well for learning the guitar because you've only got to learn 3 or 4 chords. And then, I got addicted. I completely and utterly got addicted. And I think because my background within the military was, I was trained to suppress my emotions, but music is all about expressing emotions. So in a moment where I was kind of, I had a difficult time, from in my own life personally with being injured and not being able to go to work, not knowing if I was able to play sport at the level that I had done. My best friend who I had lived with had just been drafted out to Iraq. With all those things in play and in my mind, I found this medium of music, which gave me the ability to really focus and lose myself really and express myself. And so, songwriting within the space of a year, I was writing my own music and, and then really when when my best mate came back, he was kind of like, got me into sort of doing bits of karaoke and then open mic nights and everything else. And that's really when that sort of side to stuff became a little bit more serious, really. But I'd certainly say that I find music in a sort of dark place, and it really provided an element of light. And just became addicted.
Yeah, I completely get it. I mean, that's an experience so many people have, in terms of music kind of being an escape, a way to express yourself, and then just becoming completely addicted to that kind of art form, right? And seeing where
Well,
that takes you.
totally. And I think equally as the listener as well, right? It's one of those things as a music fan and a lover, just I remember being one of my last jobs in the military was with the Commander Helicopter Force, doing extreme cold weather survival training.
Mm.
And, we were out there and minus, from -10 to -50 at times, quite isolated. And, and I just had music to listen to, and,
Yeah.
and there was things going on at home, and, kind of losing yourself in music. And so, in that moment, I was writing music, but equally learning from artists and groups, you know, since music began, and really finding a relationship, and I loved it. I absolutely love it. And so music has become incredibly important, I think, in my life, and gave me a creative outlet, which I probably didn't have previously, but I always had that creativity, but I just didn't know it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's played an incredible role in my life. It came in, I believe utterly for a reason. And yeah, I've had some amazing experiences.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, I kind of want to turn back to your management company, the Fly United.
Mm.
You briefly mentioned this earlier, but I'd love it if you could just talk a little bit about who you're working with and some of the successes you've had recently.
Yeah, totally. I mean, as someone that's been involved in the music industry, again, I've been blessed to work with so many different people, um, and I think, I believe in taking the best from every single person that you meet, and you know, I would say, from the likes of you know, people that have made a real impact on my life and career have probably been the likes of people like Booker T from Booker T and the MGs, who's, you know, an absolute Stax legend.
Yeah.
People would know him, Justin Timberlake, the Jonas Brothers, you know, been blessed to work with Simon Cowell, of course, producers, songwriters like Jimmy Jam, Terry Lewis, the Underdogs. You know, I could sort of go on really. And they've all kind of, yeah, they all left a bit of an impact. Malay, you know, yeah, they all left. James Fauntleroy, you know, one of the biggest songwriters in the world, works, you know, regularly with the likes of Justin, Jay-Z, Rihanna, Silk Sonic, Bruno Mars, you know, and even having moments with those guys, you know, they left a real mark. And I'd say I utilize all those different experiences within my management career as well now, and even, you know, with my career within the Overtones, it kind of all blends together. But I think music management for me, because, you know, I've kind of lived that, and I am living that sort of life and career as an artist. I feel like I know, and I've always felt I knew what an artist needed, you know, not just from a music business, just not from like that guidance, but from a, you know, a mental, physical, you know, spiritual level. And so I suppose, you know, to answer directly your question, the biggest success story that I've had at the moment has probably been in the last year, um, with a guy called Tom Ball. So many will know Tom from Britain's Got Talent. He was the runner-up on Britain's Got Talent in 2022, and I started to work with Tom shortly after. And again, I spoke to him very quickly about coming up with a strategy, coming up with a goal. What was his goals? Where did he want to get to? What did he want to do? And really carving out, you know, a concept and a strategy to try and make that happen, to help facilitate that happen. And you know, we've had some amazing experience, and he's done so well.
Yeah.
Um, you know, from going from BGT to then America's Got Talent All Stars, which was kind of branded the best of the best. You know, in the world, they took the best acts and winners from Got Talents from all over the world, stuck them into one huge competition over in Hollywood. And, you know, Tom came away, you know, we had a solid plan about what he was going to sing, what he was going to do, you know, and he came away with a golden buzzer, the first ever group golden buzzer in history on AGT All Stars, went viral, and then went straight to the finals and just had some moments. But those moments we utilized and we strategized and we made sure that we had the ability to launch his music career in the right way. And actually, you know, working alongside Music Gateway in releasing music independently was crucial to setting up his long-term strategy. And, you know, delighted to say that we've just signed him to a major independent with Westway Music. And, you know, he's creating an album, just dropped a single, just been back on Britain's Got Talent this year as a special guest. And, you know, really, you know, we're doing some amazing work, some amazing songwriting sessions with some pretty credible people, which I can't talk about at the moment. But,
Yeah.
you know, and in the last year, when we look back and we analyze it, what the goal was and what the strategy was, you know, we've succeeded on every single thing that every single goal that we set ourselves. And that success, you know, that success. And, you know, I talk about this a lot. And, you know, within the music business, when I start to work with an artist, or even when I'm providing that advice, I talk about, you know, business and setting yourself up to make sure that you can really make that a long-term thing. You know, I always say, if you want to make it in the music business, you have to make music a business. And that's something that a lot of people don't really think about. They think, oh, I've just got to write the song and we've got to do a gig and I want to do this. But it's not. In order to, you know, make a business out of this, you've got to provide yourself and make yourself an asset. And, you've got to provide value for other people that are investing in you, whether that be business partners or whether that be the listener. Um, and so it's really crucial that to really have that type of a mindset. So yeah, sorry to waffle,
No,
but yeah,
it's fantastic. And
I would certainly say
congratulations.
that Tom has been, been a wonderful experience, been someone who I adore managing. And we've got a great relationship. Me as a manager, mentor, and a friend. And I think that's something that you've got to have in the industry.
Yeah.
So yeah, so Tom, naturally, within the Overtones, I sort of take on a kind of operations manager type role and business manager, which is great. I work with the likes of Abby Edwards, who just won Starstruck this year, a guy called James Graham, who's an amazing talent and had huge success both here in the UK and America. And then, some developing artists as well. So, yeah, it's life's good.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as I said, congratulations. I mean, the signing is amazing, and that's just a testament to your hard work and Tom's hard work. And we love Tom's music at Music Gateway, always listening to it in the office. So it's
Yeah.
fantastic to hear you talk about it. And I guess that kind of brings me on to my next question, which is, artists ask me this a lot, and you kind of already touched on this, but I'm going to ask you anyway. And
Mm.
artists always ask me, which is more important, the music or the branding? And by that I mean not like does the music have to be good, but like which should be your primary focus? I'm sure you'll have a really strong opinion about this.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I do. But firstly, I would certainly say the answer to that is music, front and center. You cannot build an empire without that in the music business, right? Music business, music is first. And so you've really got to work on that product before that's branded and you come up with a concept for who you are, what you're about, and your passion for it. So I would absolutely say that you've got to get the music right and you've got to get who you are right. You can't just start creating a brand and then go, oh, I'm going to make music out of this, unless you're a songwriter, and then it's the other way around, of course. But in this particular instance, if you're talking about artists, groups, and music, and artist development in specific, I think it all starts with the music. It has to. Um, and then from there, you can really work on that brand. And branding's hugely important.
Yeah.
But equally, it's nothing without a great song and a great product.
Yeah, I completely agree. I get asked that a lot, and I kind of understand why I get asked that because you see there's a lot of kind of, oh, I've got to have the numbers here and the numbers there and it's got to look right. And people then often look past, well, what are you actually like selling? What is your product? It is the music, right? And I think
Yeah,
it's so important to keep sight of that.
it is. Do you know what? Again, in my early days you know, as a budding singer songwriter, playing every toilet in the land, playing every gig that I possibly could, performing to the likes of, 4 or 5 people and 10 people, and only 6 of which really cared and really listened. I believe in that. I believe you've got to have the person in the front row reading the newspaper and not really bothered about what you're doing, but equally, they wouldn't be there if it wasn't for that music, and it starts there. But equally, I think if you've got 10 people listening and 6 people really care and love what you do, then the other percentage of people, that might be about the aspect of branding or the presentation. And I certainly found that within my career. When I certainly started to give people an excuse to come and listen to my music, they did. And then it all became this whole thing. So I would certainly say music first, but branding plays a huge part, and perception plays a huge part in an artist's career. And you've got to think about that. But yeah, you've got to get the song right first.
Absolutely. So talking about an artist's career, can you tell us a bit more about your solo endeavors?
Yeah, gosh, yeah. I mean, I started in Portsmouth, playing open mic nights and shows and gigs, and then I realised that I kind of needed to, if I was going to take this seriously, I needed to sort of branch out and start to do shows in as many different places as I possibly could, and start building that support, start building that connection with fans, and spreading music. And I really had a great moment where I ended up releasing a demo and I told lots of people about it. And then I ended up doing loads of different shows. And then, because of, doing those shows, I ended up having an element of success on this online independent music store. And then going to sort of number one in their online charts, which, to be honest with you, didn't really mean the world on a kind of official UK charts level or whatever else. It wasn't huge, but what it did, and to come back to that element of perception and branding in many ways, was I found that people started to talk about me, and they started to say, gosh, Jay, he's number one in these charts. God, you're going to go and see him. You're going to go and see him. Oh, he's amazing, And the response to many friends was, have you listened to him? And they were like, no, but apparently, he's amazing. And people started to talk about me based on the success of something which they'd never even listened to, which formed a catalyst for people then to gain that type of an interest. And then, of course, the fact that I was in the military and the Navy, and there was that interest, there was that kind of PR kind of, oh gosh, this is interesting, this is going. And I kind of really, again, I latched onto that quite early, that, to give people a reason to come and see and listen became a kind of, I got quite cute to that quite quickly. And then equally from a value point of view, in which we spoke about earlier, I remember sort of 3 years in, speaking to sort of managers and saying, look, can we talk to major labels? And they were like, gosh, it's too early. And I was like, well, why? We've got the songs. I've got a great story. I can perform. I'm a great investment. It's value, right? And and I was often told, no. And actually what happened very quickly was I ended up speaking to lots of major labels who kind of saw that investment, saw that I had value. And very quickly I ended up working alongside many different really great songwriters, developing producers, working with some huge people. And I actually worked for a good amount of time early doors under the guidance of Crown and Mark Hargreaves, who was at that moment developing lots of different artists similar to me, the likes of Ed Sheeran, Jessie J, Vivi Brown, Ellie Goulding. We were kind of all within this pool of talent, within Crown, and people like Mark Hargreaves, Sarah Stennett, Paul Stacey, who was my kind of, right-hand man at that time, and doing songwriting seminars and connecting and learning and writing, and it was really, really great, that really, really great. And I think, I ended up then, not feeling like that was a home for me, and I wasn't feeling like the priority that I felt I should be. And so then I ended up finding a fantastic independent manager who then really sort of worked, with me. And, I then ended up signing a record deal with Decca Records at Universal. And then, I learned some amazing lessons with Decca, and how to manage myself in that scenario, how momentum is so important, how, the domino effect is so important within the industry. You have to have everything lined up.
Yeah.
And so when we talk about what's important, the music comes first, and then everything else. And if you knock down those dominoes in any other order, you're going to have one left standing. And so you really need to cover every aspect and make sure you do things the right way, work with the right people, and what's more, have fun doing it. So yeah, I've been blessed with so many different experiences. Shortly after Decca, I was signed to Bug Publishing, which was a major independent publishing company who linked me up with some incredible songwriters to collaborate and further develop myself. They put me in with the likes of Malay, who was an amazing producer, one of the best producers I've ever worked with, who was at the time working alongside this amazing artist called Frank Ocean and the Channel Orange record. He linked me with the likes of John Legend and Booker T. Again, I've had some great experiences, but I'd say that working with those people, developing and figuring out the game, figuring out the music game, how to play it, still is something that I really, really enjoy.
Fantastic. Well, I'd like to dive into that in a little bit more detail in just a second. But before that, I'd love to know what's kind of the best piece of advice you've ever been given by anyone actually in the industry?
Gosh, so many, Daniel, so many great bits, golden nuggets. You
Yes.
know, I think, um, I think never be fooled into never be fooled into thinking that you know best. I think as artists, you can absolutely get carried away with your own creative vision, what's right for you, this needs to do this way or whatever else. And that ego sometimes can get in the way with listening to people. Um, I myself have been really guilty of that in moments. Um, but actually, it's really important to invest in people. It's really important to invest in members of your team, uh, in giving you advice and help guiding you to where you need to get to, because that's really where the magic happens. When you build a team around you, there's not one artist or group in the history of music that has managed himself. Every single element, every artist has worked with a team that's helped elevate that person and squeeze every aspect, to really help get them where they needed to go. And so, I think it's really important to remember that sometimes when you get carried away, don't shut things down too soon. Listen to everything, get all of the facts, get all of the advice, all of the information, and then go, okay, cool, let's go that way. Or actually, I think that. So that's one thing. I think you live and die by your own sword, is something that Booker T told me. And that was shortly after I'd had some real issues, communication and some bits and bobs with the label that I was working with at the time. And, I didn't feel like I was being valued in the way that I felt that I should be. And Booker said, you live and die by your own sword. And that really struck a chord with me, because ultimately, even as a manager, I will suggest, I will guide, I will try and help and elevate in every aspect that I can. But equally, it is the artist. It's your career. It's your decision. It is based on how you do it. So you've got to know that you're going to live and die by the sword based on your decision or your investment and trust in other people to guide you. And I think that's the power you have to have. You have to have that element of power, because if you haven't, you start to lose it really, really quickly. And I've spoken to many and witnessed many huge established artists who've relied solely on managers, and then oh gosh, they've lost that power. They've given too much of that power away, and
Yeah.
then they've gone, oh gosh, I'm no longer a priority there, and oh, how do I get that back? It's very difficult to get that power and confidence back in yourself. So it's your ship. You've got to make sure that you're leading, you're leading the way.
I love
So
those
yeah.
points. And actually, it's kind of they are the biggest mistakes you see artists making very often, and so they're just like such excellent points. I
Mm.
guess that kind of brings me on to another question, which is on the flip side. So we've talked a lot about being an artist and kind of looking to break essentially, but on the other side, as management, what are you really looking for that makes you think, gosh, I want to work with that person?
There's a whole load of different things that I get caught up in. Um, and firstly, it's the music, the voice, the attitude. Um, I get turned off really quickly. If someone's got an incredible voice, but they haven't got the attitude to back it up, it's just a big no-go for me.
Yeah,
You know, you've got to be, there's this perception that managers are kind of like, the ones, and labels. I want to get signed. That's my goal. I want to get management. That's my goal. And again, it's just, you've got to work. You are, as the artist, going to make 80% of everything that you bring in. That means that you can't be expecting to do 20% of the work,
yes.
right? So as a manager, when I'm looking and I'm, keen on working with someone, what have they got? But what is their attitude? Are they prepared to work not just as hard as me, but harder in order to succeed? Equally, their attitude to kind of want to learn and do stuff, and I talk about Tom, who I look after. Tom, in many ways, reminded me of myself as an artist because, I'll work from dawn till exhaustion to make something right,
Yeah,
and get it right. And if I don't know the answer, I will get the answer. And if I don't know how to do it, I'll learn.
yeah,
Um, and he's exactly the same. He'll message me every single morning. This is what I'm thinking of doing today. What do you think? Or what do you need me to do? Love it. Love it. Monday to Friday. I've got to control that balance, that work life balance, of
yeah,
course. But that's the attitude that I'm looking at. Really, it's not just for me, talent and voice is 50%. If I'm being brutally honest,
yeah,
you've got to have the right attitude and recognize that just being good to people, just just being a kind person is everything in the industry.
yeah,
A lot of people talk about Ed Sheeran's success. The guy's a lovely guy. He's a lovely guy, and I tell you, from early doors, when he was busking, and I had the pleasure of connecting early doors. You know, he's been lovely to every single person that he's met and worked with and whatever else. And that kind of energy that people want to work and wanted to work for him and help and whatever else has paid him absolute dividends in where he's got to. So yeah, lots of different factors there, but equally, yeah, be good, be good to people. I
yes.
hope
I
that
think that's
answers the.
such an important message, and that actually kind of rounds off our conversation really nicely, which is to say, I think for an artist to be successful, they have to have all of these ingredients. But as you very rightly pointed out, the attitude matters so much. It's the same in any kind of walk of life, right? You've got to be able to build relationships with people. And if you turn up expecting, people to just do everything for you, that's just gonna like not work out, right?
It's definitely not going to work out. It's definitely not going to work out. Like I said before, the music industry is a business, and a big part of business is people.
Yeah,
Uh, and if you don't treat people right, they're not going to be inspired to help you and elevate you in your business. And so it's so important. It's so important. And then equally, that sort of transitions not just to the people that in and around your team, but equally your fans.
yeah,
You know, fans and supporters make the music business. every single element that you can bring back, from music to marketing, every element of the business that you would look at, or I would look at when I'm kind of, you know, helping direct and carve a music career. It all comes back down to the listeners and the fans and what they would want to think, or what they would want to experience, or, you know, how they feel. And I love the saying that people will never remember what you said, but they will remember how you made them feel.
What would you say to an artist looking to work with management?
I would say attitude is absolutely everything. Managing expectations is another. You know, that understanding that you are working with someone who is essentially a business partner in the first instance. That person is going to look to try and carve out a career and a business out of the music that you make. But you are responsible for that business, and you are responsible of every aspect that you bring to that artist manager to make it a business.
Yeah.
And so your attitude, your energy in trying to make that as best as you possibly can is so, so crucial. So yeah, it's certainly about, you know, being open to be guided, critiqued, and also just inspired. You know, if I'm honest, it really is about every aspect when you work with an artist manager, to try and really pull the best out of you. And to do that, sometimes you've got to go to some, you know, places that you might not want. You know, you have to step out of your comfort zone, or, you know, do certain things that don't quite feel right. You know, not all of the time, you know, artists don't always look at the bigger picture, because there's always a priority,
Yeah.
you know, in what they want to do. You know, I've recently spoken to a number of artists that say that their big goal is maybe to get signed. And when I said, well, if that's your big goal, why is that the goal? Well, because we can release music. Well, you can release music now
Yeah.
independently. You know, why do you want to work with a major label? Well, to release music to more people. You've got control of that. We've got control of that to do that. So, you know, it's really about being open-minded, to be guided in certain places that you might not have expected to be, but also your attitude when you get, you know, given those suggestions and direction.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. And I think that's a really lovely place to kind of round off this whole interview. You know, having just heard about your solo career through to the Overtones and your management work more recently, I think there's so much to take inspiration from. So thank you so much for your time, Jay. I really appreciate it.
My absolute pleasure, Daniel. Lots of love to everybody watching or getting involved, and all the best with everything that you're doing. The music industry is really, really difficult, but also it's absolutely amazing. You know, to sing and sing for your supper is something that's been one of the best blessings of my life. And now to help others, and maybe you know, do exactly the same, is something that I'm really excited about. And working alongside Music Gateway is fantastic. So thank you for the opportunity, Daniel, and
Yeah,
speak to
it's
you
our
real soon.
pleasure. Thank you.
Cheers.